Sunday, December 23rd, 2007, Locust Grove, Oklahoma. Jack and Elaine Denney are getting ready for Christmas in their rural home when someone knocks on their door. 2 days later, their daughter, her husband, and their 3 children find Jack and Elaine dead in their dining room when they come over on Christmas morning. These horrific murders shook a tiny town, and it would take 11 years before someone is indicted and held accountable. This is a tragic story of many possibilities: mental illness, mistaken identity, or just cold-blooded murder. This is Jack and Elaine Denney, Silent Night, Deadly Night. Hey y'all, I'm Kris Calvert.
And I'm her husband, Rob Potter. Welcome to Hitched to Homicide.
For better or worse.
Till death do us part.
Welcome back, everybody.
Yes, welcome. And for our friends from Finland.
Finland.
Yes. Tervetuloa.
Very nice.
There you go.
I probably should have said Merry Christmas instead of welcome back. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, whatever you're celebrating.
Yep.
Well, wherever you're listening, be sure to subscribe to Hitched to Homicide, then like, rate, and review the podcast so other people who are just like you and love true crime can find us. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below. Mm-hmm. If you want true crime with us all the time, please join our closed Facebook group, The In-Laws and the Outlaws. They're acting very outlaw lately.
Tis the season.
Yep. Go to Facebook and type in H2H In-Laws and Outlaws. Answer a couple questions you're in. Go join. I post photos. We talk about cases that we're not even doing on the podcast.
Yep.
It's a great group of people. Merry Christmas to all of our in-laws and outlaws.
Yes, Merry Christmas.
You can find us on Instagram at Hitched to Homicide or on X at H2H_podcast. And we also now have a Buy Me a Coffee link if you want to send Rob some coffee.
Please do.
He drinks it all the time, especially right now through the holidays.
Absolutely.
You know, the holidays are supposed to be easier. They're harder.
Yeah, it's a lot of stress.
They are harder. It's okay if you're not having a good Christmas. Happens to everybody.
Just enjoy the Christmas day.
You can find that link in our show notes. You can also send us a text. The link to that is also at the top of the show notes where it says, send Kris and Rob a text.
Mm-hmm.
We love getting those. Well, this is the last podcast before Christmas.
Yes.
We're going to take a little break on Christmas week so I can bake goodies and finish my Christmas shopping. So if you're out Christmas shopping right now, send the good vibes out to people like me who haven't finished.
I'm doing the best I can, Charmaine.
But we'll be back.
We will be back for New Year's.
Yep, just taking a break for a week.
We hope everybody else is finished with their Christmas shopping or whatever it is that they need to do.
Right.
This case is so tragic because it went on for so long. And there were a few twists and turns, and this poor family didn't know for the longest time. It's a really small town, but I wanted to talk about these people today.
Okay.
Before we get started, let me thank some sources. Justice.gov, The Oklahoman, Homicide for the Holidays, The Oxygen Channel, ABC KTUL in Tulsa, Tahlequah Daily Press, got it in there. I have to think about how to say that. Locust Grove Funeral Home, Channel 9 News in Oklahoma City, and the Oklahoma Department of Corrections.
There you go. Well, you ready?
I am.
Let's do it.
Justin James Walker is born on May 10th, 1985. His early life's a little bit of a mystery, other than to tell you that he was raised in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, and by age 10, he was seeing a psychiatrist and receiving treatment at mental hospitals.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
During his life, according to court records, he will have a history of schizophrenia, borderline personality disorder, and psychosis.
Wow.
The triple. He's
Yeah.
a triple threat.
The trifecta.
The trifecta. Maybe that was the word I was looking for. Over his lifetime, he will have convictions for a multitude of things. In 2005, he's picked up for possession of stolen property, for which he got a 5-year suspended sentence.
Okay.
Then in 2007, Justin is using drugs and living in Holbert, Oklahoma, which is about 20 miles away from where our story takes place.
Okay.
He's doing cocaine, meth, and embalming fluid,
What?
which I was totally clueless about.
Wow.
But it's known as smoking a wet drug. That's right, you smoke it.
Wow. And how old is he at this time?
He's like 28, maybe mid-20s somewhere.
Jeez. Wow.
But on its own, this embalming fluid, it can't be taken in pure form, but it's used as a solvent or a carrier for real drugs, which sometimes is PCP, angel dust. The embalming fluid is also used for the dissolution of PCP, and users will dip their cigarettes or their joints in embalming fluid to enhance the feeling they get from getting high.
Wow.
This is what makes it a wet drug.
Okay.
And this is what I believe Justin was doing. I don't think he was doing PCP or angel dust, but I think he was dipping cigarettes and joints into embalming fluid.
Gotcha.
Yeah. On the street, it's known as fry, dip, water, and superweed. It's extremely dangerous, but apparently it gives you a euphoric feeling and an adrenaline rush. You can experience hallucinations, feel detached from reality, and it can cause you to have delusions of grandeur, like, I'm superhuman. I have superhuman strength.
I have that without the drugs.
I am a golden god!
I am a golden god. In between doing drugs, Justin has himself a girlfriend. Her name is Crystal. And while they're dating, Crystal seems to confide in Justin that when she was a young girl, her uncle, who lives in Locust Grove, Oklahoma, not too far from where Justin's living, this uncle lives on Iron Post Road in Locust Grove. And what she's telling him is that he used to sexually molest her.
Yeah.
Now, Locust Grove, Oklahoma is a town less than 3,000 people.
Wow.
It's small, it's tiny, it's rural, it's a farming area. Everybody knows everybody.
Right.
Everybody love everybody.
Everybody love everybody.
You know, there's a town, I lived out in the country, and there's a town that was not too far away from us that I think it wasn't any bigger than that. And they had a little grocery store that my father used to take me to when I was a little kid, and you could sit up at the soda fountain. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was cool. And there was
Those
a
are
little,
the best.
Yeah, and they had a little section with toys in it. I always loved going over there and getting it. It was great.
We still have a place like that in Lexington. It's
Yeah.
been around forever, and people still belly up to the little bar there and have a grilled cheese sandwich and a
Oh, yeah.
sarsaparilla.
Yeah, it was awesome.
How about that?
All right, yet I digress.
But also living in Locust Grove, where this supposed uncle who's a child molester lives, are Jack and Elaine Denney.
Okay.
Jack Raymond Denney is born on October 29th, 1942 in Broken Arrow, Tulsa County, Oklahoma, to Gene and Flossie McDonald Denney.
Flossie.
I love that name, Flossie. My mom used to call me Flossie. That was like a nickname she would give me.
Yeah.
He had 3 brothers, Larry, Richard, and
Mo.
Dude.
Oh.
Dude.
Dude?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I call Rob Dude all the time.
Yeah. But it's usually when I'm in trouble.
Hi, I'm the dude, man.
Dude. Don't do that. He also has a sister, Brenda. Jack loved cars and hot rods. Jack and Elaine meet in Sperry, Oklahoma. They both graduated from Sperry High School. And on January 21st, 1963, he will marry Nelma Elaine Childress in Tulsa.
Okay.
Elaine's born on November 24th, 1941. She's a little bit older than he is. She's a cougar. In Wellington, Texas. Her parents were Roy, he goes by Skeet Childress, and Edith May. Don't you just love how out in Oklahoma it's like Dude
Yeah.
and Skeet and yeah.
Yep.
Elaine has two brothers, Donnie and Leroy, and three sisters, Barbara, Betty, and Jackie. I was waiting for you to come up with a B name.
No.
Jack and Elaine marry in 1961 and settle first in Alvin, Texas, then Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, before finally settling in Locust Grove, Oklahoma in 1981.
Okay.
They would have two children, a daughter, Sarah, who ends up being a local high school teacher, and a son, Kris, who lives in Allen, Texas, where Elaine, of course, has family.
Okay.
Kris is married to a woman named Letha, and these two have two children. And Sarah is married. Her husband's name is Ladney.
And they had a child named Cindy.
No, but he's also a high school teacher.
Oh, okay.
And these two have three children.
Okay.
So Jack and Elaine have 5 grandchildren: Kate, Rachel, Jacob, Kaylin, and Lindsay. Jacob's the only boy.
Oh, that poor guy.
All his cousins are girls.
Oh, man.
Jack and Elaine are pillars of this small community. Jack had just recently retired from the Grand River Dam Authority, where he was a superintendent of mechanical maintenance for 27 years.
Got himself a little pension there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on a side note, Jack was known for being a man that was going to tell the truth. And he was even a little bit of a whistleblower at work because some higher up wasn't doing what they were supposed to be doing or following the rules. And Jack was a rule follower.
You know, Cindy, no one likes a tattletale.
You know, Cindy, when you tattle on someone, you're not just telling on them.
Sorry.
He loved to build and work with anything that was mechanical. He enjoyed gardening and dancing. And as I said before, he has a passion for old cars and hot rods, but Jack loved being with his wife, and he took really good care of his family and his house, and he especially enjoyed time with his grandchildren. Now, Elaine had stayed home and raised the children and was a homemaker. That's what the newspapers said back then.
Okay.
I love that term, homemaker. Now we would call that a stay-at-home parent.
A domestic...
Engineer.
There you go. Perfect.
And she really was, because Elaine loved to sew and quilt. She loved to cook. She loved gardening. She was this dedicated homemaker, and she was known for her organizational skills. Something I will never be known for. Creative people have a tough time with that.
Yeah, that's not our priority.
Not that we live in squalor. I don't want anybody to think this is a hoarder's house.
No.
Not by any stretch of the imagination.
No, not at all.
The only place that's crazy is my office. I will, but I know what's in every stack, every pile.
Yeah.
So don't touch those.
See, I'm just the opposite with my studio. It has to be pristine, or I can't work.
Yeah, but I have to pick up the socks every night from the den where you've taken them off while you've watched football the night before.
Yeah, but that's the den. That's
Just
not the
saying.
studio.
Yeah. Takes 5 seconds to pick up the socks and
I know.
toss them in the laundry room,
I know.
y'all. Don't you? Who agrees with me? Show of hands. Just kidding. I don't care. That's the worst thing you do. I don't care. She loved to play board games and ride as a passenger on the golf cart with her grandchildren, meaning she's letting the grandchildren drive this golf cart while she's a passenger. I'd be afraid they'd like dump me out somewhere.
Oh, dude, I'd have them driving.
I know you would, you daredevil. Elaine also thoroughly enjoyed decorating for each holiday. She loved to send cards to family and friends. She had a fondness for each and every one of her animals on their little farm. Jack is 65, just retired. Elaine is 66. Already told you she's a cougar. People kind of considered them the grandparents of this whole area. They sort of acted like everybody's grandparents.
Gotcha.
On the morning of Sunday, December 23rd in Locust Grove, Jack and Elaine are at their house around 11:30-ish when their nephew comes by. He does this every day. His name is Billy Scott. He comes by every single day to bring them the newspaper and to check on them, which I just thought was so endearing.
Was his last name Scott or was it Billy Scott?
Billy Scott. Scott is his last name.
Oh, so it's like Ricky Bobby.
He's like Ricky Bobby, only he's Billy Scott. 2 first names.
He's got 2 first names.
He does.
Cool.
He does.
Awesome.
But it was very endearing to me because he would come by every single day and bring them the paper and check on them.
That's nice.
He's kind of like the one relative who does see them every day, and it's because he lives really close to them. So it's very convenient.
I used to do that with my grandma.
Yeah.
She lived in town, and when I was able to drive in high school, I would go over to her house every night after school.
Yeah.
And either have dinner with her if I was going to stay at school for whatever reason. And but yeah, so yeah, I get it. I get it.
He lives nearby. It's convenient. Billy sees Elaine and he speaks with her. She gives him some money for the newspaper he bought for them. And Jack was in the shower. He's like, how's Jack? He's in the shower. So Billy didn't get to see him. Then sometime between that morning and that night, there's a knock at the door of the home of Jack and Elaine on Iron Post Road. By the way, I heard that everybody knows where Iron Post Road is because it actually used to have an iron post in the center of it when it was like a dirt road and then a gravel road, and now it's like a paved road, and the iron post is gone, but the name stands. It's still called Iron Post Road.
I wonder why they had an iron post in the
I
middle.
don't know, maybe to hitch up your horse to back in the day when they were going west.
Could be.
But Elaine's been in the kitchen. She's making treats for the neighbors. I haven't done this yet, but I'm getting ready to. She's making peanut brittle. She's bagged it all up for people. And this is something that she does each and every year. She's also an expert quilter. And everybody she loved who knew her had one of her quilts.
Oh, really?
We have an expert quilter in our family,
Yes,
and we
do.
all do have quilts from her.
We do.
We love her.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as best as can be estimated, sometime between 5 p.m. and 6 p.m., this knock comes at the door. And Jack answers the door, and he's immediately bum-rushed by Justin Walker.
Really?
Now, there are 2 different theories here. Justin thought the house he just knocked on belonged to the uncle of his girlfriend, Crystal, the man who had sexually molested her when she was a little girl. The other theory is that Justin is just high as a kite. He's looking for money. So he's just going to burglarize a home and kill any witnesses. I think it's the first scenario, but we'll talk about that in a little while.
All right.
So Justin bum rushes 65-year-old Jack back into the house. He pulls a gun on him, a 9mm handgun. These 2 get in a scuffle because Jack's not going down without a fight. Now, Jack's wallet is on the dining room table, so whether he pulled it out in order to show him that he wasn't the man that Justin thought he was, or it's just a coincidence.
Right.
But the wallet is out on the dining room table.
Okay.
The television set is on in the dining room, and the newspaper is on the table, and I think that Jack and Elaine were getting ready to sit down for dinner. By the way, when I was writing all of this and taking notes, I kept writing Jack and Diane. I was having like a John Cougar Mellencamp moment. Sorry, he's just John Mellencamp. John Mellencamp. I just kept having Jack and Diane moments, but Jack and Elaine.
Little ditty about Jack and Diane. Sorry, go ahead.
But they're getting ready to sit down for dinner. And Justin wrestles with Jack, but then he ultimately shoots him with this 9mm handgun. He shoots him in the head and in the chest several times. Then Elaine hears the shots from the kitchen. She rushes into the dining room, and Justin immediately shoots Elaine in the head. And then he shoots her 3 or 4 more times in the chest.
Good Lord.
And then I think he panics. He's clearly in the wrong house. So he takes the money from Jack's wallet, the cash. He doesn't take any firearms, and Jack had them in the house. He didn't take any jewelry. He just takes about $100 and leaves. 2 beloved pillars of the community dead for $100. Man. Christmas Eve comes and goes. Sarah tries to call her parents, but they don't answer. She doesn't think much of it because they're busy. They had parties. Her mom's handing out candy. But the next morning is Christmas. And Sarah and her husband and their 3 kids are due to come over to her parents' house, to Jack and Elaine's house. And she calls and nobody answers, which she thinks is hinky. Christmas Eve was one thing, but Christmas Day was like another thing entirely. They should have been there that morning.
Right.
But they do go ahead and drive over, and Sarah goes inside the house. The front door is unlocked, and Sarah knew something was wrong the moment she walked in because it was quiet and her parents did not greet them at the door. Hey, how are you? Well, Merry Christmas. We're so glad you're here.
Yeah.
They walk into the house. They get to the dining room, and Sarah thought she saw a black garbage bag on the floor.
Oh, no.
It is a pool of blood.
Yeah.
Elaine was shot in the head, just like I told you, and torso several times. Jack was also shot in the head and torso. They're laying on the floor. There's blood everywhere. And Sarah's husband, Ladney, calls 911. Now, on call that day is the undersheriff, Jason Chenault. All of his people are on vacation for Christmas. So this is a tiny town. Nobody's really working on Christmas.
Right.
He's just on call. And he was just getting ready to open presents with his own family when this call comes in. And knowing that all of his people are off for the day, he calls the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation so their crime scene unit can help process this crime scene,
Sure.
which was super smart.
Right.
And in steps Vicki Lyons from the OSBI, the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigations. Vicki was also on call that Christmas. Vicki, like everyone else, is going into this house through a back door and past a washer and dryer. And she notices that the rug at the door is all bunched up. But other than that, the house looks like they're just getting ready for company and for the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
Both bodies are lying in the dining room. Jack is face down. Elaine is face up. There's blood everywhere. The television set is still on. Elaine is not wearing shoes. These are just some of the things that they noted when they were on the crime scene.
Observations.
At first, the police are thinking this is a robbery gone wrong, except nothing's really missing. And they don't live in the kind of house where if this transient person is just walking down the road or looking for a place to rob, that they would be like, I'm going to this house.
Right.
This house looks like it's filled with money and lots of valuables. Right?
Right.
But nothing's missing. Jack's wallet's on the dining room table. His credit cards are there. His cash is gone. But if it was a burglary, then why was nothing more than just the money taken?
Right.
And why murder them in such an extreme way? They're 65 and 66. There's no reason to fire 6 bullets or 7 bullets into each of them.
Right.
And because the police think it looks like a shootout, they're like, wow, this is a lot. But nothing else in the house is gone, and their cars are still in the driveway. It looked like this horrible Texas shootout, like
an execution.
It did.
Yeah.
And it was all for nothing.
Right.
There's no sign of forced entry, but honestly, from all the interviews and articles I read, nobody locked their doors in this little town. Yeah. They talk about it a lot.
Sure.
The funeral director, he comes to the house to collect the bodies after they've processed the crime scene. There are all kinds of people out in the front yard, basically the whole town, right? Small towns, everybody has to show up and be there and discuss it. And police start asking them some questions because they're out in the yard. What were Jack and Elaine like? Did they have any kind of drugs or painkillers that somebody might want to take? Any sort of prescription drugs? Did anyone have a personal vendetta against these two? And everybody's saying the same thing. No, they didn't have any enemies. So they're thinking, well, was this a case of mistaken identity? Is that why Jack's wallet is out on the table? Was he trying to show somebody, I'm not who you think I am, kind of thing?
Yeah.
They dust the house for prints and come up with nothing.
Nada.
Until they dust the room outside the back door and they get one palm print from the top of the dryer.
Oh, really?
And the print doesn't match Jack or Elaine, and that's all they have. That's the only evidence they have from the entire crime scene. They do have several 9mm casings and some bullet fragments, but no gun.
Okay.
They asked the neighbors lots of questions, but the problem is, even if these people heard gunshots, like neighbors, next door neighbors, even if they did hear gunshots, it's the middle of nowhere in Oklahoma, and people are firing guns all the time.
Yeah.
So no one would really notice, if they heard a gunshot.
Right.
Also outside in the crowd is Billy Scott, their nephew. And police ask him, when was the last time you saw your aunt and uncle? And he tells them, quote, I was the last person to see them alive. Probably, end quote. And Billy says he's there to help, but the investigators thought he was odd. And the fact that he said to them, I was the last person to see them, the police are like, whoa, what does he mean by that?
Right.
So they take him back to the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office for a formal interview. And it's here that they discover that Billy really liked guns. He has a bold action, a 44 Ruger carbine that holds 5 rounds. He owns 3 of them. He's very forthcoming with all of this information.
Right.
And the police think it's strange that he's volunteering all of this. Personally, I think he just wanted to help, or he wanted to seem important to the case.
Right.
I was the last person to see him. And now Billy Scott is a suspect.
Wow.
They offer him a polygraph. They interview him over and over. He tells them around 11:30 on Sunday, I saw them. And they do give him a polygraph test, and Billy passes with flying colors.
Right.
He's very cooperative. He had an alibi. Not to mention his prints don't match the palm print on the dryer.
Right.
And they really, really want to match this print. They look at their friends, people who are friends with Jack and Elaine, his co-workers. You know, Jack was this supervisor at the River Dam Authority, and he's had to reprimand people who worked for him before, and he was kind of a whistleblower. So the police look into this and discover that at one point he did report the wrongdoing of his superiors, but was this retribution for that? You know, ultimately, nobody had a motive or a problem with Jack and Elaine, and everybody has an alibi. So there are no suspects. Locust Grove is living in fear. This is a tiny little town. Doors were locked while they were home now. And whoever killed Jack and Elaine is still out there. That's what they're thinking.
Yeah.
When they have the funeral for Jack and Elaine, it is so big that they have to hold it at the Locust Grove High School gym in order to accommodate everybody.
So they were loved.
They were very much loved. Now, they know it was from someone who wasn't from the area. That's what they're thinking. This can't be somebody who's from here.
Right.
So every time somebody was picked up, stopped on the road for walking, Vicki Lyons, who's with the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, is showing up with an ink pad and white paper to take these people's prints. So it's almost like, you know, stop and search kind of thing. You know,
right.
if they're walking down the street and they stop them, if they get pulled over for some reason, they're getting their palm prints. They're getting their prints from an ink pad and just regular white paper. She didn't want to miss anybody.
They're going all the way trying to find out what's going on.
She does this for 5 years.
Oh my gosh.
And then they hear from some neighbors, well, that there's a man living in what they called an old camp. It was more of like a rundown, gutted out trailer that's been held together with duct tape. I mean, it was rusted out. But when police go out there, nobody's living there. It's another dead end.
All right.
Of course, they go through the list of dangerous criminals in the area, right? The next place to look. There was really only one guy, and his name was Dwight Hissock. And he lived in the area. His family lived in the area. And Dwight has a record. And people start talking that no one has seen Dwight. Where's Dwight? You know, we've got 2 people dead. That Dwight, he was always up to something.
Yeah.
Now he's gone. Where is he? So authorities look a little further into it, and they find out that the reason no one has seen Dwight is because his butt was sitting in jail in Tahlequah.
That's a pretty good alibi.
Yeah, he was actually in jail when Jack and Elaine are murdered. So they have to take Dwight off their list. It's another dead end.
Okay.
Meanwhile, 6 months have passed, and Justin is picked up and charged and convicted of second-degree burglary, assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, and unauthorized use of a vehicle.
Ding, 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 ding.
It's now June of 2008, and this time Justin isn't getting a slap on the wrist like before he got probation.
Right.
This time he gets a 6-year sentence.
Wow.
And Justin does do some weird stuff while he's in jail. And I think the reason he got the first sentence just at parole was because his state-appointed attorneys were like, he's got some mental issues. And, you know, the prison system's probably not going to be good for him. Let's give him probation. Judge agrees. Well, this time they're back saying the same thing. He's got some mental issues.
Yeah.
But the judge is like not buying it this time.
Fool me once, shame on you.
I'm giving him 6 years.
Right.
Yeah. And he does some really weird stuff while he's in jail. It's reported that he would have hallucinations. He cut himself several times. He ate toilet paper and cotton balls.
Oh, wow, like Buddy.
Yeah.
The elf.
Then while Justin is being transferred from one prison to another by Cherokee County officials, during this ride, he tells the deputies, quote, "I have information about the old couple killed on Iron Post Road," end quote.
There you go.
Now, nearly a year has passed when this happens, and then something strange occurs. In September of 2008, and now it's almost been a year, no progress. September 2008, law enforcement gets a letter from the Cherokee County inmate in jail for assault and battery. It's Justin. And while he's there, he wrote a letter to Undersheriff Jason Chenault and Vicki Lyons and Judge Mark Dobbins and DA David Pierce.
Okay.
He writes it and sends it to the county clerk's office. And in this letter, he says that he killed Jack and Elaine. He starts it off, "This is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth." And he says, he confesses, "I killed Jack and Elaine." And the letter wasn't dead on. Some parts of it were really accurate and other parts were not as accurate.
Okay.
But Undersheriff Jason Chenault and Vicki Lyons go to the state penitentiary to meet with Justin Walker.
Okay.
And they were worried at first it was a false confession because this guy has some issues, right? He's eating cotton balls and toilet paper.
Yeah.
And what he tells them, what Justin tells him, was that he was hired to do these murders, to go in and take these two people out. He was told that there would be guns and stuff in there and money. Maybe he wanted the notoriety, but they need evidence, right? They need cold, hard evidence.
Of course.
And he tells them, well, the guy that came to the door, I shot him there. And she came from the kitchen area and I shot her. And they know from Justin's record that he has these mental problems. They're trying to figure all this out. You know, did he really do this? Is he just delusional?
Right.
So they start asking him some details like, can you draw out a layout of the house? Can you draw us a layout of the house? And he did. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty daggone close.
Yeah.
And they thought it's enough.
Well, especially for someone that wasn't familiar with the house and was just there for that short
Mere
period of time.
moments.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the saying? It's close enough for government work.
Or jazz.
Or jazz. But they ask him why he's coming forward. Why are you doing this now? Why are you coming forward with all this information now? And he tells them he just wants to clear his conscience. Just wants to let it all out there.
Yeah.
They start trying to piece together everything. The one problem is that palm print on the dryer doesn't belong to Justin at all. And the DA is not willing to go forward with just the confession of a man that they know ain't right.
Right. But see, here's the first thing that I would do. I would check to see if they had a repair person in to work on the washer and dryer.
Do you want to lean in and say that's called foreshadowing?
That's called foreshadowing. Boom.
Very good, honey.
If I could take this mic off, I would drop it and walk out.
Please don't. And I know how much you love your microphone. So I know that's never going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
But years go by and Justin Walker's just sitting in prison and police and the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigations are all still trying to find a killer. But in their guts, Jason Chenault and Vicki Lyons both think Justin's the killer.
Right.
They met with him. They're like, this guy, he did it. We believe him. He actually did it. Then in June of 2012, after serving 4 years of his 6-year sentence, Justin Walker is paroled and is out on the street.
Jeez.
And once this happens, Vicki Lyons is like, I need you to come in and meet with me.
Yeah.
We're going to bring you in and have a chat. So they bring him into the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigations office. And what he does when they get him there, they say, you sent this letter. We want to talk about this. And he denies.
Deny.
Deny.
I didn't do that.
He says, I never wrote that letter. He recants the whole thing.
Wow. They had him and then they lost it.
And now without evidence, they think, what the heck and heck? We're back to square one.
Yep.
Square one.
Yep.
And a couple months after this, the lab calls. They finally have a hit on that palm print. It's
Okay.
now December of 2012,
Okay.
5 years after Jack and Elaine's murder. And guess who the print belonged to?
Could it be the Maytag repair guy?
It belonged to the funeral director who took the bodies of Jack and Elaine out of the house that day, right past the washer and dryer. He must have stuck a hand out to brace himself.
Yeah.
And it was his palm print. And he didn't glove up until he got into the house.
Gotcha.
And he's braced himself with his open palm somewhere. They didn't have his prints because
Yeah.
he hasn't been convicted of anything.
Right.
But then he applied for a conceal and carry permit in Oklahoma. And when you do that, you have to submit finger and palm prints.
Yeah.
And that's when they're like, we got a match.
Yep.
And it's the funeral director. And everybody's like, oh, are you kidding me?
He did it. No, I'm just
So
kidding.
even what they had, they don't even have that now.
Yeah.
So now they're realizing no prints at the crime scene. And what I'm wondering is, did Jack take the money out of the wallet himself? Because why didn't they find prints on the wallet?
Yeah.
Yeah. If all Justin takes is money from the wallet, why aren't there prints on there?
Right.
But now, without even this palm print, this case is colder than a room full of ex-wives. And they're getting the story out to the news and in the newspapers. They are desperate. They're offering rewards. Their PR people are going to the news stations and saying, would you please run a story on this? But they're not getting any tips. And they're back to square one. No physical evidence, no testimonial evidence, just a cold case, no motive, nothing.
It seems like the perfect crime.
It kind of does.
Yeah.
And by this time, Vicki Lyons at the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigations, she's retiring. But she's so knowledgeable on this case that the DA, his name now is Jack Thorpe, he hires her as a private investigator. Now, 2 more years pass, and this family is suffering. No leads, no clues, nothing. They have no idea who or why their parents are dead.
Right.
And this is when a television station does yet another story at Christmas on Jack and Elaine, how they were the grandparents to everyone, how Elaine would quilt and cook for everybody, how Jack was this outdoorsman and Elaine loved to garden, and they really humanized this case. And finally, this brings in a credible tip. A co-worker of a mental health professional from Wagner City Hospital. So a therapist or a psychologist or a psychiatrist, it's someone who worked with one of those people.
Gotcha.
And this person comes forward, and you got to remember, anything that you say with your therapist or your psychologist or your shrink, it's confidential, right?
It's like an attorney.
But this coworker calls in and says, hey, I know something. And authorities interview this person, and Vicki Lyons actually interviews them. And remember, it's a person with secondhand information, not the original person. And what they tell authorities is that someone had admitted to a role in this murder while they were a patient at Wagner City Hospital.
Really?
And that person is
Justin
Walker. So the DA, Jack Thorpe, makes a call to Justin's therapist, and guess what? Justin is protected by HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. And this therapist of Justin's cannot legally talk about anything that Justin has talked to him about.
Blink twice if...
Right. But the DA, Jack Thorpe, he's not willing to let this go so easily.
Right.
And what he finds out after digging a little deeper is that a grand jury can subpoena HIPAA requirements. They are the exception to HIPAA requirements. They can subpoena somebody, and those HIPAA requirements are like out the door.
I didn't know that.
So they serve a grand jury subpoena on the healthcare professional who took care of Justin. Now, this therapist does divulge the information that the patient is, in fact, Justin Walker. And back when the murders occurred, Justin had this girlfriend, a girl named Crystal, and she confided in him that she'd been sexually molested by her uncle when she was a little girl. And he was trying to exact his retribution against Crystal's uncle, or his revenge against Crystal's uncle.
Right.
And he went to the wrong house. And her uncle did live really close on Iron Post Road and to Jack and Elaine's house.
Which would explain the wallet.
Which would explain a lot of things, yeah. So that's when authorities start to think the attack was an accident. But finally, they can indict Justin Walker, and they do. He's arrested, and as they prepare for trial, remember, this is all the DA really has. This is the letter, and that, he's confessed to it, and now he has confessed to his therapist.
Right.
So that's what they have, but he's recanted that letter was from him.
Sure.
So they've always been able to get this judge to go easy on Justin because he's mentally ill.
Right.
And what the DA discovers is that Justin's mental condition is going to be a problem because he's going to plead guilty by insanity.
Gotcha.
And here's the problem that the judge has, though. When Justin takes his medicine, he would retract and say, I'm innocent. And when he was off of his meds, he would tell authorities anything and everything they wanted to know. And that's a problem for the DA, and that's a problem for the judge.
Yeah.
But they really don't want Justin to get away with this murder. It's been nearly 10 years of chasing after a ghost, and now they finally have him.
Right.
So the defense puts together their case, and instead of a not guilty plea, they go with a not guilty by reason of insanity or mental disease or defect, like I told you.
Mm-hmm.
So now it all hinges on finding Justin competent to stand trial in court.
Okay.
And they do. They
really?
find him competent.
Wow.
There is a doctor that says, yep, he's good.
Yeah.
He's fine.
Good to go.
And the DA is all over this. And when Justin and his attorney realize they don't have a leg to stand on with their insanity plea,
Right.
Justin agrees to a plea deal. And this is good and bad, and I'll tell you why. It's good because it's over. It's bad because the family never gets their day in court to have family impact statements or to hear why he murdered Jack and Elaine.
Right.
But he's going to prison. He pleads guilty to 2 counts of second-degree murder. He is sentenced to 40 years in prison for each count. And as a condition to this sentence, he has to testify under oath as to what happens. And when he does talk, he says it had nothing to do with the girlfriend.
Really?
He says he was just high on drugs, was looking for something to steal. He, quote, bum rushed the old man, end quote, when he came in the door. Quote, I put the gun to his face, put him inside, end quote. They get into a physical fight, and Jack's trying to defend himself.
Right.
Elaine comes running from the kitchen. He's fighting with Jack, and when Elaine walks in and, quote, that's when I shot the first guy. Then I saw his wife running. I shot her, end quote. He says he freaked out after he shot them and just left. But police think he really did go to the wrong home. He was just getting rid of witnesses.
Right.
So not a lot of answers. He doesn't give out that much information. And yet it was just a completely, totally senseless act.
For $100.
For $100.
Yeah.
Quote, this family has waited and waited and waited. This is the DA Thorpe speaking.
Okay.
We have so many of these unresolved cases up there. When we can get one of these things solved and go to these families and do our best to get them some justice, there is nothing better in my job, end quote.
Yeah.
Justin Walker sits at the Joseph Harp Correctional Center in Lexington, Oklahoma, where he's serving these 2 40-year sentences for the murders of Jack and Elaine Denney. So was he there for Crystal? Was he just trying to impress his girlfriend? And then when he's no longer with her, is he just saying, it wasn't about her,
Yeah.
It wasn't about her. I was just looking for money for drugs. I was high.
Right.
So nobody really knows. I mean, everything sort of points to, according to his therapist, that he was out for revenge on this uncle.
Mm-hmm.
But once they finally get him, he's like, nah, didn't have anything to do with her. No, I was just high and I killed him. End of story.
Wow.
Yeah, so sad.
Yep.
But that is the story of Jack and Elaine Denney. And that's all I have to say about that.
I think the saddest thing about this case is the fact that they really, he confessed to it, but they really don't have any solid answers.
0 answers.
Yeah.
Except that they know that their parents were killed and grandparents were killed for $100.
Yeah.
And for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
And the nicest people in the world.
Yep.
And you really have to hand it to the undersheriff and the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigations because they wouldn't let this go.
Right.
Thank goodness they wouldn't let this go.
Yeah.
They didn't get all the answers that they wanted, but they do have a killer in jail, and there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, that's good. Well, he's where he needs to be.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, we may not have any answers from him, but we've got some definite answers on these boneheads. How about,
right.
how about a little bless your heart?
Well, bless your heart.
All right, this first one I'm calling You Had One Job.
I've heard that before. I use that line sometimes.
Yeah. Police say a getaway car ran out of gas after an armed robbery near Atlanta, leading to the speedy arrest of 2 suspects.
Okay.
Gwinnett County Police Corporal Michelle Pira, I hope I said that right, says 18-year-old Najee Logan and 21-year-old Justin Larry were charged with armed robbery after their arrest early Tuesday after officers found the car on empty.
Okay.
Behera's statement says the victim surrendered a wallet to 2 men at gunpoint in a grocery store parking lot about 1 a.m. Tuesday in Stone Mountain, Georgia.
Know where that is. I know where that is.
Yeah. Police say officers found the car about 15 minutes later with Logan and Larry inside it. They had made it about 2 miles down the road before running out of gas, notes the Atlanta Journal-Constitution.
That's what would have happened to them if they stole my car. I never have gas for some reason. And I drive a hybrid car, y'all.
Oh, well. Both men were jailed, and police didn't say if they have lawyers. Behera says it was fortunate the victim wasn't hurt, chalking up the arrest to what she called poor planning by the suspect.
You'd think, yeah.
You had one job.
You had one job.
Yep.
All you had to do was gas up.
That's it. Okay, number 2. Well, maybe someone will send her some flowers in prison. A florist caught on camera stealing flowers from a New Jersey cemetery told police she was just trying to tidy up.
Tidy up.
Yep. Linda Wingate, a 59-year-old former police dispatcher, was arrested after police investigating months of reports of flowers being stolen at the First Reformed Church Cemetery in Pompton Plains, set up a surveillance camera.
She was stealing them from the cemetery?
Here we go. They replaced previously stolen flowers in front of and I didn't know what this word was. It's called a columbarium, and that's where they store important things like urns and things like that.
Yeah, it's like a wall.
Yeah. This was at the cemetery, which is directly across from the police headquarters.
Oh my gosh. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, after those plants disappeared as well, police reviewed the grainy footage and saw a woman driving up in a minivan and removing the plants. Officers say they visited the police force in neighboring Riverdale to borrow a camera that would allow them to obtain better quality images, but officers there quickly identified the woman captured on film as the former dispatcher who now owns Linscraft Floral Designs.
She was stealing the flowers and then selling them to people.
The police captain, Christopher Depute, I think that's how you say it, says he's not buying her claim to have been tidying up near the graves of people she knew. Quote, "We just had those flowers placed there," he says. "They weren't garbage ready to be thrown out." Police who have not found evidence that Wingate resold the flowers,
Well, how would you know?
Yeah, exactly, says she will probably receive a fine and community service.
Can you imagine you get flowers from somebody and they're a dead person's flowers? I would be worried that someone was going to haunt me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Why would you do that?
That's some bad karma right there.
That is really bad karma. Really bad karma.
All right, number 3, and finally. Does he get a discount for buying in bulk?
Okay.
The owner of a weekly Western New York newspaper says a man bought hundreds of copies in an unsuccessful effort to keep people from reading about his drunken driving arrest.
Oh, my gosh.
State police arrest Joseph Talbot on December 29th in Wayne County and charged him with driving while intoxicated. Police also charged him with refusing to be fingerprinted or photographed. They say he told troopers he didn't want his mugshot in the newspaper.
Yeah, well, then don't drink and drive, dude.
Yeah. Which notes that he referred to their fine publication as that rag.
I'm sure they were happy to sell him
Yeah.
every paper.
Well, he further called the arresting trooper an a-hole who was ruining his life. The 12,000.
Did you call him an a-hole, or
Yeah.
you're just saying a-hole?
No. Well, he called him an asshole.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's
It would be funnier if he was like, "You're an a-hole."
exactly. The 12,000 circulation Times says it obtained a mugshot from the county jail and printed the mugshot and a story on New Year's Eve and published them online. The story might have ended there, but as the paper tells it, Talbot was, of course, embarrassed and was hoping to keep people from seeing the story. So he decided, this is the best, he decided to follow our delivery trucks and buy out all of the Times from the newsstands in Newark. This prompted the publisher.
In Newark, New Jersey?
I guess.
Wow.
This prompted the publisher, Ron Holdraker, to go out armed with hundreds of copies and replenish the outlets Talbot bought out.
Oh, surely this is a smaller town. This is a smaller town.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
In all, he says Talbot bought nearly 1,000 copies at a $1.25 apiece. Unfortunately, his extraordinary efforts go unnoticed since they.
It was still in the paper and still online. If I was the editor in chief of that paper, I would be like, move it to the front page.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's just move this story. Just turn it into a story. Get it out of that little, arrest column.
Yeah, especially after he called it a rag.
Yeah, exactly. Pen is mightier than the sword, dude.
Oh my God.
You're in trouble.
Well, there's your idiots for the week.
Well, if you have a bless your heart, or you know somebody's heart who needs blessing, all you got to do is go to hitchedtohomicide.com, and when you get there, there's a pull-down menu. While you're there, you can also suggest a case.
Yep.
And tell us about your brush with true crime.
Please do.
That's my amazing husband out there.
And that's my beautiful bride in the booth.
Join us next time on Hitched to Homicide in the new year 2025.
Yes. Bye, y'all.